All right, I have a very special guest joining us on our show today. I have Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. He'll be joining us to talk about current events in the news, also the values we need as Americans to move us forward and unite the country. Allen, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Stephen.
Yeah, just a quick background. I want people to know that you are the former chairman for the Republican Party of Texas. You were a
hmm
congressman in Florida.
Yes.
You served our country as an Army lieutenant colonel, and you are also a distinguished author of several books. And we'll let people know where they can learn more about you and follow you. But
hmm
something kind of scary came out yesterday, and want to get your feedback on it. According to the New York Times, Hunter Biden has been secretly living at the White House and advising his father on running the country. For me, this was a bombshell headline and article. What are your thoughts? What is your reaction to this story?
Well, we have known that he has been occupying, some space there in the White House. That's why the whole thing about the bag of cocaine that was found there, and all of a sudden we can't determine whose it was. That really was a lot of questions. Okay, so if he's been there quite often, and if anybody else, if there was a bag of cocaine in my house, I'm sure people will figure it out who it belonged to. But we have to be very troubled and worried because, without a doubt, Joe Biden does not command the issues. Joe Biden, if he gets off script, is a disaster. So we have to ask ourselves who is behind his presidency, being it Barack Obama, being it Valerie Jarrett, who knows? But the fact that we could have Hunter Biden actually giving advice to the president, once again, it lends his knowledge of this whole I had nothing to do with his business dealings. There was no collusion or knowledge or any participation. There is so much corruption in this family. And I think that that's why you see the recent polling of many Democrats do not want him to run. And I think that there was a recent poll that just came out and actually said that they should look for someone else to replace him on the ticket.
Yeah. Who do you think that might be? Gavin Newsom swears up and down that it's not going to be him. He fully supports Joe Biden, and everyone needs to
Yeah.
get behind him.
Yeah, right up until the time when Joe Biden says he's stepping out of the way. Look, without a doubt, Gavin Newsom is at the top of that ticket. But the bottom line is that it does not matter who the Democrats put up. Their progressive socialist, leftist, Marxist policies have led this country down a horrible path. And if it is Gavin Newsom, all you have to do is say, do we want America to look like California? So many Californians have been leaving and coming here to Texas. Where do Americans go if we want to abandon this country? Yeah, he can't do anything with Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. She is not very well liked. Governor Pritzker there in Illinois, he's the exact same guy that says he wants to allow illegal immigrants to be law enforcement officers. Phil Murphy in New Jersey, Mr. Infanticide. No, I don't think so. They really don't have anyone that can step up and run for president. They can take this country in the right track that it needs to be on. They're just going to continue these failed policies.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Uh, it's scary to me, the idea that Hunter Biden might be secretly running the country, or at least whispering into the ears of somebody who's obviously losing his cognitive ability. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you saw this, but while he was over in Vietnam, the White House is trying to cover up for this big time, but he didn't know how to get off the stage. He was
Yeah.
rambling. He started saying things like, oh, I have to do what they tell me to do. I can
Yes.
only call on people that they allow me to. And then out of nowhere, he's like, you guys, I'm going to bed. Like, I'm too tired.
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. What were your thoughts on that? Did he come across as presidential and strong in Vietnam, or did he come across as weak?
No, of course not. I mean, and the whole entire world saw that happening. And the fact that it happened on foreign soil is even more disconcerting. So you have a president that does not live up to the Ronald Reagan mantra of peace through strength. When the leaders such as Vladimir Putin of Russia or Xi Jinping of China or the Ayatollahs and Rouhani there in Iran or Kim Jong-un in North Korea or the Islamic jihadists, they see an incredibly weak individual and they see an opportunity. And that's exactly why you saw Kim Jong-un get on his train and head over to Russia to talk with them because they know that there's a window of opportunity for them to take advantage and to capitalize and exploit the fact that we have just a horrible national security position and stance. Our foreign policy is incredibly just abysmal, as well as our economic policy and our economic security and our energy security. And the fact that we have this wide open border, 6 to 7 million people coming across this border illegally. We have not caught all the terrorists. I don't care what anyone says. We have gotten some, but there have been some terrorist cells, without a doubt, that have gotten across into this in this country. All you have to do is go out in West Texas in the Big Bend Mountains. You can see that people can evade capture. So America's at an incredibly weak point. In my 62 years, I don't think I've ever seen it this weak. Even Jimmy Carter was not this bad, but this is horrible for our future. And we have got to get a course correction based upon November of next year.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. I don't know if you saw this or not, but MSNBC columnist Dean Obeidallah said in a podcast this week that former President Donald Trump needs to die in prison in order to protect our country. He also went on to say that with every fiber of his being, he believes Donald Trump needs to spend the rest of his natural life in a prison cell in order to save democracy. Do you think Donald Trump has really single-handedly ruined democracy for the United States? Or is this just a talking point in order to stir up anger among Democrats?
No, this is just the over-the-top rhetoric that comes from the progressive socialist left, and especially over there at MSNBC. And if you want to talk about undermining democracy, it's the Democrat Party. As a matter of fact, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is talking about how the Democrats are undermining the primary process. That's part of our representative democracy and our electoral process. It's the Democrats who want to allow illegal immigrants to be able to vote in elections here in the United States of America. They're not citizens. It's the Democrats who want to stack the Supreme Court because they want to get their way when it comes to that highest court in the land. It's the Democrats who want to end the filibuster in the Senate. They want it to be just like the House. That's undermining our democracy. That's one of the foundations of the United States Senate. So they should be pointing the finger at themselves. What they're trying to do is create this demonized Donald Trump, who is the end all be all because he got in the way. They were supposed to have won in 2016 with Hillary Clinton. She should be working on her second term right now. That did not happen. And so they're angry that he got in the way, and they're angry of the possibility that he could get back into the White House because they want to see the undermining of America. They want to see the destruction of our constitutional republic. If there's anyone that is destroying this country, it is Joe Biden, because you cannot have 7 million people coming to this country illegally. You cannot have a president that violates the Constitution, which says that one of the duties of the federal government is to protect every state from invasion. And what we have happening is an invasion coming across our border. They don't want to talk about that. They want to continue with the over-the-top rhetoric.
Yeah. There's a lawsuit that was filed, I believe, either last night or early this morning in California to have Donald Trump removed from the ballot within California. What do you think of these attempts? There's been one in Florida. There's been one in New Hampshire. Well, are these going to be successful, or are these just a waste of time?
They're a waste of time, and if anything, they are creating a martyr. I mean, Donald Trump is getting martyrdom, and more people are going to swing toward his side or just not vote for the Democrats, period, because they see this intent and some in the GOP establishment. And this is based upon the 14th Amendment, Section 3. But the interesting thing about this is they keep throwing out this word insurrection. Nobody from January 6th has been charged with insurrection. Donald Trump has not been charged in all of these silly indictments with insurrection. And what they're trying to say, and you have to put it in context, after the Civil War, the 14th Amendment was really about granting citizenship to slaves since we had ended slavery. And of course, this is something that the Democrats did not vote for, the 13th nor the 14th Amendments. But the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment was basically about those members of the Confederacy who had taken an oath to the United States of America as either elected officials or as officers serving in the military, Robert E. Lee, many of them who served in the Mexican War, was to say that they could not come back and ever hold any type of elected position again, being at the federal level or the state level or in a bureaucracy. Donald Trump has never taken up arms against the United States of America. I've never seen him in a uniform saying that he was against the United States of America. So this whole thing that they're trying to blow up Section 3 of the 14th Amendment and use that as reason to keep him off of the ballot, saying that he has taken up arms and he has, fought against the United States of America, that's just false. And again, it's part of this rhetoric that really is emboldening President Trump and is really causing people to say, why are they going after this guy in such a manner? Because this is all not true. This is all false. So they're showing their fear of him more than anything else.
Yeah. I recently had a different Allen on my show, ultra liberal Democrat lawyer Alan Dershowitz. I asked him this question and he said, Donald Trump's in his 70s, but last I checked, he wasn't alive during the Civil War.
Yeah.
This 14th Amendment nonsense needs to be tossed out and move on with our lives.
Yeah, that's the exact thing what Section 3 is meant for. And, Alan Dershowitz may be a liberal Democrat. He's not a progressive. He's definitely not a socialist, but he believes in the rule of law. And when you look at the charges that have been brought against Donald Trump down in Fulton County, Georgia, and I grew up in Atlanta, Fulton County, Mr. Dershowitz said that during the Bush-Gore, after that election, the things that I did and things that we worked on, I could have been brought up on these exact same charges. And so when you think about what happened in 2004, 2008, 2016, all of the election denial and all of the, alternate electors that the Democrats were putting up and out there, people are sick and tired of this two-tier system of justice. They really are. And just before we came on, I saw the breaking news about Hunter Biden getting indicted on 3 gun charges. Why wasn't that the case in the first place? Why was there this silly plea deal for someone that, Stephen, if you and I had gone out and lied on a 4473 background form, we don't get a sweetheart plea deal. We're getting 5 to 10 years in federal prison for that. So why was this even an issue for Hunter Biden? So all of this stuff is being revealed, and I think it's going to come back to hurt the left next year in the election.
Yeah. Let me take you back in time, just since you honorably served our country. We really appreciate all the service that you did. What were your thoughts on the way that the Joint Chiefs of Staff and President Biden chose to remove our military men and women out of Afghanistan? And do you think that anybody will ever be held accountable?
I spent 2.5 years in Afghanistan, and that was a very horrible moment for not just myself, but for many who served over there, those who lost their brothers and sisters there, those who lost limbs, because we felt that our sacrifice and our service and our commitment had just been thrown out into a swamp pit. When I think about that, it is the greatest strategic, operational, and tactical debacle in U.S. military history. I mean, it makes the Bay of Pigs look like nothing. And the fact that we have 13 Americans who unnecessarily lost their lives and several other wounded there at Hamid Karzai International Airport, which I know very well, it's just appalling. Will there be anyone held accountable? No. Is there a possibility that would happen in a different administration, maybe a Trump administration, whoever else, not a Democrat administration? And I think that's one of the fears that they have. Someone should be held accountable because Americans lost their lives unnecessarily. And truthfully, if you want to talk about treason, if you want to talk about violating United States code law, aiding and abetting a terrorist organization is right up there at the top. But that's basically what President Biden did by abandoning Afghanistan in such a way and leaving them with over $80 billion of U.S. military equipment. And how big of a slap in the face it was that 20 years after 9/11, we saw the exact same people having a parade, marching down through Kabul, Afghanistan, displaying U.S. military equipment. And to me, that's a commercial ad that we put up next year. I don't see how Joe Biden could get reelected.
Yeah, yeah. What are your thoughts on the Russia-Ukraine war? Is that something that we should continue to support? Should they pivot and go a different direction? What's your thoughts on that?
We should not be writing a blank check to Russia. And the more that we know about the corruption of Hunter Biden and I think Joe Biden tied to Ukraine, maybe that's why we're writing these blank checks. Look, no one wants to see a sovereign nation be invaded. No one wants to see the wanton killing of innocent civilians, especially women and children. But this started once again because of weakness. You go back to the Obama administration. That's when Vladimir Putin came in, took some portions of eastern Ukraine and annexed the Crimea. Then you come along with Joe Biden, and he continues to push to try to take the entire Ukraine back himself. The number one thing that should be provided to the Ukrainians is the big fighter jets. That's what they asked for, because you have to be able to control your airspace. If you can control your airspace, you don't have Russian artillery in that country. You don't have Russian tanks. You don't have Russian supply lines in that country. So the only two things we should be looking to provide the Ukrainians: long-range artillery, which we have done with the HIMARS weapon system. I'm very familiar with since I was an artillery officer, and then also fighter aircraft so that they can control their airspace. But we should not be sending them money for elections or help them with unemployment and things of this nature. That is not what the American taxpayer should be doing, especially when we have a wide open border here where we're under an invasion as well.
Yeah, yeah. I read the other day that some of these immigrants are getting more benefits than our retired seniors, and that just seems so wrong to me. People that work their whole life, contributed to a system whether they wanted to or not, and then the annuity, the money coming out of the Social Security is less than what an immigrant can get just being able to sneak into our country.
No, you're absolutely right. And now they're getting jobs as well. And think about if you are a person in Hawaii, in Maui, who lost everything in those fires. The Biden administration only gave you $700. But I can tell you that just recently I saw illegal immigrants getting on an airplane in Dallas, heading up to Charlotte on American Airlines. I'm quite sure that the tickets for them to fly were more than $700. And furthermore, Steve, how can you, as a person without any identification whatsoever, how can you get into an airport? How can you get on to one of our airplanes?
Yeah, I have to go through the scanner where they scan my naked body. Because I have dark hair, I get flagged every time. They pat me down, I get the little crotch rub, and it's like, okay, no weapons, move on. I show my ID, my passport, and these people, they're just given like a little manila envelope and go wherever you want, go wherever you want. It's kind of scary because the reality is they don't know where anybody is.
No.
And that's what's really scary. Then I read just within the last 5 days, over 150 people on the U.S. terrorist list have come through, identified with facial recognition software, and now they don't know where any of those people are.
Well, therefore, we're setting ourselves up for another 9/11. And so when you talk about starting an impeachment inquiry about Biden corruption and everything, there should have been impeachment already over these open border policies that he has, because he's in complete violation of the Constitution. He is aiding and abetting terrorist activity by allowing this to happen. And he's aiding and abetting drug trafficking, human and sex trafficking. To me, that's a high crime and misdemeanor.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that. What are your thoughts on, a lot of the youth today seem somewhat lost. They don't know where to go with their life, their identity, whether they like our country or not. Do you think that there would be any benefit to doing something like the country of Israel, where after you graduate high school, there's a certain number of years within the military or within some kind of civil service to the United States? Have you ever given any thought to that?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I think that we should have some type of national service. I think that the military service should be reserved to your best because that's what you want. And as a former commander, I don't want to spend 90% of my time on 10% of the troops that don't want to be there. So I think some type of way of giving back But just yesterday, I spoke at the convocation at Liberty University. 13,000, young Christian students, in the arena. That reinforces the belief that you have in America because their motto up there at Liberty University is training champions for Christ. And I think that we're going to see better days ahead if we can replicate that in other places. And young people are distraught, they're despondent, they're in despair. They're out there searching for something. There's a God-shaped hole in their heart. And we need to, as parents and grandparents in our communities, we need to seek them out. We need to make sure that they're not filling that God-shaped hole with what the world says, meaning drugs and sex and alcohol, or even committing suicide. The suicide rate for our young people now is astronomical. So we need to reach out to them, wrap our loving arms around them, and let them know that, God loves them. And this country does love you. And if you don't like this country, something's wrong with you, because I've seen some places you don't want to go to.
Yeah, yeah. What did Kennedy say? Ask not what your country can do for you, but
Mm-hmm.
what you can do for your country. Having that national pride. Are we a perfect nation? No.
No.
But we've improved so much. I mean, what are some of the areas that you've seen improve in your 60 plus years living in the United States?
Well, it's very simple. In 1961, I was born in a blacks only hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. 50 years later, I was sworn in as the congressional representative for Florida's 22nd district. Now, what's the importance of that? When I was born in 1961, blacks could not go on Fort Lauderdale Beach. 50 years later, I was the congressional representative that included Fort Lauderdale Beach. Blacks could not go on Palm Beach Island. 50 years later, I'm the congressional representative that represented the highest per capita income zip code in the United States of America at the time. The late, great Rush Limbaugh was one of my constituents. He lived on Palm Beach Island, and Coulter, so many others, multimillionaires and billionaires. That's how we've corrected ourselves in the United States of America. But sadly, we have this message out there by the few with a large megaphone that is trying to take us back and trying to take us down the path of this whole equity thing, which is really just the imposition of an equality of outcomes instead of the equality of opportunity that enabled me to be who I am and where I am today. And it started with a good quality education. But when you look at the left, think about this, how Republicans in the state of North Carolina in their legislature passed a school choice bill, House and Senate. And then the governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, a Democrat, issued a state of emergency, declared a state of emergency because Republicans have passed school choice legislation. That's how we're going backwards, because we have a group of people that truly are. They are the party of systemic racism as they try to point the fingers at everyone else. So I'm living proof of what has happened in 62 years that shows that this country has continued to try to be a more perfect union.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. I love hearing that. I did not know that. That is really, really neat. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're big on values. What are a couple of values that you think Americans should research, that they should understand, that they should implement into their life?
Sure.
Okay, you got a card. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I always carry my little 3x5 cards. I was in the Army. They taught me to write stuff down. And so I will share with you the Army values that I grew up with. Loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And I would add in character to that. So I think that if we could get back to stressing loyalty, if we can get back to stressing a sense of duty, respect to others, and selfless service instead of worrying about who's going to serve you, a sense of honor, integrity, being truthful with people, and personal courage. Again, the greatest days of this country are ahead of us.
Yeah, that's great. I love hearing that. I feel very blessed to have parents that instilled values in us, that it was very important that we were trustworthy and honest and loyal and friendly and courteous and kind and brave and cheerful and thrifty and brave and clean and reverent. Those were the Boy Scout mottos, but those were drilled into me and my siblings regularly.
Yes.
And I'm just so grateful to have those values. I'm also grateful for the time that you gave us. I know you're very busy. I don't want to hold you up. I want to thank you so much coming on and sharing your life and your situation. I love that you believe that the greatest days are ahead of us. I think it's really important to believe that. I've lived through hard times where I've had to tell myself, this is really hard, but one day I'll laugh at this.
Yeah.
So why not today? And then I say that to myself. I believe my best days are ahead of me. I can't see it yet, but I believe it, and I just keep taking action and moving forward. So thank you, sir, so much for coming on. If people want to continue to gain wisdom from you and follow you, what's the best way to do that, Alan?
Oh, well, they can go out there on all the social media platforms except for TikTok, because I'm not supporting the Communist Chinese Party. Also, my Substack page out there, as well as the YouTube channel. And you can follow us with the Steadfast and Loyal podcast. And I'm the executive director for the American Constitutional Rights Union. And you can follow us there at BACRU.org.
Great. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. God bless you, Stephen. Thanks for having me.